All right. We have covered a lot about plugins. Now let's finish up this section by having a discussion on theming your applications. Ionic uses a style sheet language called SAS, which stands for Syntactically Awesome Style Sheets. And basically, it's an extension to CSS that brings a lot of powerful features that we don't have in CSS. Now, the explanation of that is beyond the scope of this section or this course. That's something you need to learn on your own, and it's really, really easy. But what I want to emphasize in this lecture is a feature called variables. In SAS, we can declare a variable and use it in multiple places. So let's say we have multiple elements in different parts of our application, and we want all these elements to have a border radius of 5 pixels. We can declare a variable like this, and then when applying a style to, let's say, a button, we can set border radius to a SAS variable. Now, this is not a valid CSS file, so if you give this to a browser, it doesn't know what to do with it. But when we compile this SAS file to a CSS file, this is the output. Now, as I said, we can reuse this variable in multiple places, and if in the future we decide to change 5 pixels to, let's say, 10 pixels, we only need to update one place in our code. Now, Ionic uses SAS a lot. So most of the customization of the look and feel of our application involves overriding some predefined SAS variables. So here in our project, if you go to the source folder and then theme, you see we have a file called variables.scss. Let's see what's happening here. So first we have an import statement that brings in the default variables in Ionic. So we have a file called ionic.globals.scss. But that file is not part of our project. Let me show you where it exists. If you go to Node Modules, Ionic Angular, which is the module where we import Ionic components. Now let's expand this. Under Themes, here you see ionic.globals.scss. And if you look here, you see a bunch of variables. They all start with a $sign, and they have a default value. Now, this file defines a set of variables that are common across different platforms. We also have platform-specific global variables. So we have ionic.globals.ios.scss. We have ionic.globals.md, which is material design, which is used on Android, and ionic.globals.wp, which is for Windows. So back in our variables.scss, first we import the global variables in Ionic. Now after that, we can override these variables. So as an example, you see we have overridden the colors variable. And by the way, we did not explicitly write this code. It's part of the starter template. So this colors variable is used in a lot of components. For example, let's go to home.html and add a button here. Click me. Now, if I don't set the color for this button, its color by default will be this primary color here. Now I can change the color here by using the color attribute. I can set this to danger. So if clicking this button is going to delete something, I can use the danger color. Let's take a look at the result. So you see we get a red button here. Or if we change this to primary, we get a blue button. Now, if you don't like this blue, or the kind of blue you want to use in your application is different, or maybe you want to have purple as your primary colors, you can come back to this variables file and change these colors here. Let's set this to purple. And here's the result. We can also define additional colors here. So in this colors map, I can add, let's say, Twitter, and set it to 55ACEE. And then back in home.html, I can set the color of this button to Twitter. And this is what we get. So theming your applications, for the most part, involves overriding Ionic SAS variables. Colors is the one that will have the most impact on the look and feel of your applications. But nearly every Ionic component defines its own variables that we can override. And that's what I'm going to show you in the next lecture. For now, let's look at the rest of this file. So below these colors, we have placeholders for overriding iOS variables, or material design variables, or Windows variables. Now below that, we've got app theme. So here we import a file called ionic.theme.default. Just like the globals file, this file is not part of our project. It's part of Ionic-Angular node module. So in the themes folder, you can see we've got ionic.theme.default.scss. We also have a dark theme right here. So if you want to give your application a dark look and feel, you can use this theme. Back in variables.scss, we can change this to dark. So what is important here is that on the top, first we import global variables in Ionic, then we override them, and finally we import a theme that uses those variables. This is how it works. Now when we build our application, Sass compiler is going to look at this file. It will import all these files, translate them to CSS, concatenate them, and the output will be one CSS file. And that CSS file is stored under build. It's right here, main.css. Now, we never really need to touch this file. I'm just explaining so you know how everything works together. And finally, in variables.scss, after importing the theme, we import Ionic icons, which you have seen before, and then a couple of fonts. Once again, these files are part of Ionic Angular node module. Next, I'm going to show you how to override Ionic Sass variables.